Hello folks, and welcome to The Lair. Today, we will continue our story of what happened after Rebbec sealed the portal between Dominaria and Phyrexia. After the end of the Thran-Phyrexian War and the resulting fall of the Empire, the technological progress and expansionistic aim of the people in Dominaria dropped consistently. Every continent led an isolated life, unconcerned with what the others would do, and each of them developed differently and in their own way. It is during this time that the continent of Ymura experienced its golden age, as the country of Zalfir, most likely the first human nation of the time to fully master magic, was founded. Very powerful mages the likes of Teferia and Jor-El were born here. In the meantime, on Theriziare, artifice was rediscovered after the fall of the Thran, but magic could only be found in isolated places such as Sumifa or Argoth, a large island of the mainland and home to many elves and druids. Not every place in Dominaria went through prolific and peaceful times, though. On Corondor, a small continent just north of Ymura, Sivitris Karzim, a plains-traveling being who was not a planeswalker, had arrived some time after the fall of the Thran Empire, through unknown means. And, in an attempt to conquer the continent, she had attacked the island from the south with her personal army of dragons. Magic was abundant here, but powerful beings inhabiting these lands, such as Gadron Dihada, Sol Kanar, the Swamp King, and Xarl, Angel Keeper, abused it in seemingly endless and pointless conflicts over territory. The events we'll be covering from now on today are narrated in the book The Brothers' War, Artifact Cycle Book 1, by Jeff Grubb and published in 1998. If you remember, during the last episode I introduced you to the AR calendar, the most famous and widely used calendar in Dominaria, which sets the year 0 as the year in which two very important characters of Magic's lore were born. Two brothers named Urza and Mishra. It is exactly from here that we'll start our journey today, from the first day of the year 0 AR, when a boy named Urza was born to a noble family on Argiv, one of the three coastal kingdoms on Theriziare. There is another equal protagonist to this story, of course, and this is Mishra, Urza's younger brother, born on the last day of that same year. While they were still very young, their mother died and their father remarried to another aristocrat woman, who treated Urza and Mishra with indifference and contempt. In 10 AR, the father of the two fell terribly ill, and to spare this vision to his sons, he sent them away to an old friend of his living in the Falaji desert on Theriziare, whose name was Tocasia. Tocasia was an elderly archaeologist who took the two young men as apprentices and taught them the basics of artifice and the old historiography of the Thran. As the two brothers were working under the tutelage of their mentor, they would frequently fight, but they always remained united in their thirst for knowledge about the Thran, the ancient race that had left behind the many artifacts that Tocasia studied. In 20 AR, Urza, Mishra, and Tocasia discover, hidden deep in the western desert of Theriziare, a mountainous location that Urza renames as Koilos, which was High Argivian for secret. What the three didn't know, however, is that they had just stumbled upon what the Thran people of Alcyon once knew as the entrance to the Caves of the Damned, the intricate cave system that extended below the capital of the Empire and that hosted a portal to another world. After the Thran, the caves had remained untouched by human hand up to this point, and the two brothers are left breathless as they find, deeper into the caves, the last technological remnants of the legendary Thran race. At the heart of the cavern, placed upon an altar of sorts, they find a weird-looking Thran machine with a large Powerstone hovering it. Urza and Mishra, moved by curiosity and excitement, try to reach for the stone, but as they are about to touch it, it explodes, splitting into two halves. Urza, being the eldest among the two, demands to hold Mishra's half to examine it more closely, but as the younger brother angrily refuses, the two have a falling out. Furthermore, they discover that Urza's stone gives the machine strength, while Mishra's weakens them. Because of this, Urza names the two Might Stone and Weak Stone respectively. While researching Thran machinery at Koilos, Mishra finds himself having weird and disturbing dreams about some sort of sentient darkness, trying to lure him somewhere. Resentment and distrust grow between the two brothers until one night a drunk Mishra confronts Urza, challenging the brother to a single combat, which they fight using their respective Power Stones. Tocasia tries to intervene to stop this foolish fight, but when she steps between the Powerstones, both brothers lose their focus and a massive explosion takes place in which the woman remains killed. Mishra is horrified by this event and flees the area into the openness of the desert. Then, the excavation site that had been built just outside the caves is closed. From this moment, the stories of the two brothers are split and continue on two parallel tracks. After Tocasia's death, Urza moves to Yotia, the most southern of the coastal kingdoms and the chief military might of eastern Teresiara at the time. There, he puts his skills with machinery to use and works as a clockmaker's apprentice. Shortly after his arrival, a curious competition is organized by the ruler of Yotia. Any man who would have managed to move a giant statue made of pure jade across a courtyard would have won his daughter's hand in marriage. The young artificer isn't really interested in the marriage as much as he is to put his hands on an ancient Thran tomb relic that can be found in her dowry. So, he builds a gigantic automatic machine able to move the statue and wins the competition alongside Kayla bin Krug's hand. Although he is now a married man, this doesn't change anything for Urza, who, completely uninterested in the woman, leaves his conjugal bed even during their wedding night to eagerly study the Thran tome. Thanks to the notion that he learns in the book and the newly acquired privileged position deriving from having married the ruler's daughter, he becomes chief artificer of Yotia, acquires an apprentice named Taunus, and works obsessively hard to create new constructs and bring them to perfection to help Yotia thrive. In the meantime, a wandering Mishra travels through the desert, unable to really leave the area because continuously lured to Koilos by the darkness in his dreams. One day, the young man is captured by the Sawardi, a militant faction of the Falaji, the rulers of these lands. Mishra is made a slave and the Wickstone is taken from him. One day, he meets Ajar, a young Falaji who had been at Tocasia's camp. With persuasion, Ajar convinces the leader of the Falaji, the Kadir, to appoint Mishra as teacher for the young prince to teach him the language of Argoth. As time passes, however, because relying on others is seen as weakness by the Falaji, Mishra becomes a threat. The Kadir then starts plotting to have him killed so that his son would not have been deemed as weak. Luckily for the poor Mishra, this plan never sees the light because one night, while Mishra is dreaming about a place that is defined as a mechanical parody of nature, a giant mechanical beast shaped like a dragon emerges from below the sand and rampages through the city. Amidst the confusion, the Kadir is killed, and Mishra is helped by Ajar in recovering the Wickstone, which he then uses to tame the mechanical beast. Even more than that, to everyone's amazement, Mishra discovers that the Wickstone allows him to fully control the monstrous construct. Mishra's student then succeeds his father as the new Kadir, and appoints Mishra as the Raki, or Wizard of the Court. The new king then set himself onto using the Dragon Engine, as it was later renamed, or Mak Fawa in local language, to unify all the Falaji people under the Sawardi over several years. During this time, Mishra takes his own apprentice too, a cruel, sadistic, and brilliant woman artificer called Ashnod. As the two civilizations both grow in power, the clashes between them intensify too. The chief warlord of Yotia, seeking peace with his rivals, makes alliance with the other coastal nations of Argoth and Koilos, and makes an offer of peace to the Falaji as well. The two brothers both attend the parley and are surprised to see each other at the table. However, before they can reconcile, the warlord of Yotia drops the charade and ruthlessly attacks the Falaji using Urza's machinery. Many are killed in the surprise attack, but Mishra manages to escape. Desperate for more weapons and blinded by revenge, Mishra and Ashnod decide to follow the guidance of darkness, traveling to Koilos and finding the mysterious portal to another world in the heart of the cave. The man and his apprentice then travel the portal, and onto the other side they find what they were looking for: more dragon engines. Mishra tries to tame them through the Wickstone, but before he can do so, he is attacked by a huge demon with black lizard skin, bones jutting out of his body, and razor-sharp teeth. His name is Jix, and he is what remains of the poor men that once led the Untouchables of Alcyon. Mishra and Ashnod understand that they stand no chance against this monster, so they escape and use the Wickstone to close the portal behind them. As the open war against the two kingdoms continue, Yotia finally falls against the Mishra's dragon engines. Urza then retreats to Argoth, where he is appointed as Lord Protector, and he is given all the resources he needs to form up the resistance against the Falagi. In the meantime, Mishra has become the leader de facto of the Falagi and is using this machinery to conquer many other nations. Both brothers continuously create new constructs to fight each other more effectively, and in their endless quest for resources, they deplete mines and eradicate entire forests on Dominaria. Like in an endless spiral of violence, the other nations of the continent are gradually drawn into the war. Mishra conquers Sarinth, a peaceful region near the Ronum Lake on Dominaria, while Urza annexes Koilos and Sardia, a mountainous region rich in metals and precious stones, home to many dwarves on Thran. One day, Falagi's forces conquered Phyrexia city in the far west of the continent. The place was also referred to as the Ivory Towers, and it was the oldest and most advanced city-state in Thran at the time of the two brothers. It is in this place that Ashnod comes into possession of a very ancient and mysterious Thran artifact called Golgothian Sylex, which apparently foresaw an apocalypse. Years before Ashnod's recovery, the Sylex had been sent to Feldon, an important archaeologist, glaciologist, and mage in Phyrexia city in 34 AR, for study purposes. This object vaguely resembled the fusion of a goblet and an oversized bowl. It was made of an unknown copper-like metal, roughly 1 foot in diameter, and on the inside it was carved with glyphs in several other languages, including Thran, Falagi, and Sumifan, making it a sort of Rosetta Stone. The glyphs referred to an item, the Sylex, and to its origin, Golgoth. Without having sufficient context, Feldon was unable to figure out whether Golgoth was a place or an entity of sorts. He translated the Falagi glyphs, however, and the message he found was, "Wipe the land clear, bring the ending. Topple the empires to bring a fresh start. Call the end, fill with memories of the land." Meanwhile, the seal Mishra and Ashnod placed on the portal to Phyrexia was not nearly as strong as the previous one, and Jix is able to reopen it from the other side. However, instead of being aggressive, the demon plays his game smart this time. He lures humans to the world of Phyrexia and corrupts them to create the Brotherhood of Jix, a group of black mages acolytes that believed in the mechanical afterlife and sought artifacts on Phyrexia to be used in the war. Jix has the members of his Brotherhood infiltrate both armies and report back to him every piece of information they come in contact with. Through his minions, he actually manages to become Mishra's chief advisor. His true aim, however, is that of killing both brothers to take possession of both of their Powerstone's halves and eliminate any possible resistance for a future Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria. The brothers' war rages for entire decades, with both sides unable to take a definitive win over the other. During this time, the land and its natural resources are heavily drained in the harvest of raw materials useful to the war. One day, Urza's son, Harbin, is caught in a tempest while at sea, and by pure chance he shipwrecks onto an unknown shore. The place, named Argoth, turns out to be completely untouched by outsiders' hands. It is a large island separated from Thran mainland, covered in blooming, lush, sentient forests, rich in natural resources and home to housefolks as old as the Thran. Later, the place also functioned as a refuge for the descendants of the survivor of the Thran Civil War who became druids there. The news of the discovery reaches Jix's ear, and the demon promptly feeds this information to Mishra. Both brothers then, motivated by all the resources that they could harvest there, invade the island separately with their own respective armies. The native Elvish, Centaur, and Treefolk populations try to pull up a fight to defend their motherland, but they do not stand a chance against the brothers' artifact construct and are brutally slaughtered. Drained by the fatigues of the war, and unaware of Jix's manipulations, Urza gladly welcomes one final confrontation with his brother to try to put an end to these atrocities. As the final battle of Argoth between the two and their armies is taking place, a desperate and disillusioned Ashnod, who had lost faith in her mentor, meets with Taunus to hand the Sylex over to him. She tells him to give the mysterious artifact to Urza and fill it with memories of the land. Jix finds out about the meeting from his informants and interrupts it, attempting to kill both apprentices at once to retrieve the powerful weapon. Ashnod passes the artifact to Taunus and uses all of her power to delay him as long as she can to allow Taunus to escape with the Sylex, giving away her life in the process. Urza and Mishra fight each other directly. When Mishra is hurt, Urza discovered that the younger brother had fallen under Phyrexian influence and had replaced his own flesh with machinery elements just like Jix's followers. We don't know exactly when this happened, but most likely the Brotherhood of Jix, disguised as Mishra's chief advisors, had betrayed him and turned him over to the demon before the last confrontation with his brother. The fanatic machine-obsessed priests had told Mishra that there was a way to make him stronger against old age and disease, both of which were starting to weaken him. Mishra naively fell to this trap and was brought to Phyrexia, where he was turned by his own accord. The rage, contempt, and general flow of emotions experienced by Urza in that very moment are so strong that something inside him triggers. His eyes finally open, and he sees the destruction and pain that his 36-year-long pointless war has caused to the land and its environment. Taunus finally gets the Sylex to Urza, who, after urging his apprentice to get as far away as possible from that place, remembers all the lands he has fought for and all the suffering that they have endured, focusing all of his energy onto the Sylex out of remorse. When Mishra launches yet another offensive against the brother, Urza releases all of this energy at once, causing a massive explosion that destroys all of Argoth. The blast is so strong that the shockwave is felt all over Terziare, and both armies are completely obliterated by it. Understanding the scale of the danger, Jix immediately flees back to Koilos, and barely makes it through the portal before the wave of destruction reaches it. Urza survives the explosion, and his spark ignites, making him ascend and become a planeswalker with the Mightstone and Weakstone replacing his eyes. He then escorts Taunus back to where remains of Yotia and informs him that Mishra is dead, although that demon from Phyrexia had killed his younger brother years before that moment. Taunus asks Urza to remain there and help in rebuilding the kingdom, but the newly born planeswalker tells him he needs to leave Dominaria for a time. In the last scene of the book, we see Taunus making his way towards the inland as snow starts falling from the sky. Thank you for watching this episode of my Magic the Gathering Complete Lore series, covering the first part of the events related to the Brothers' War. We will continue this story next time by looking at the next book of the cycle, Planeswalker. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like, and comment in the comment section down below, as it really helps me out. My name is Octopus, and I will see you in the next one.